Hi and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of November 16, 2020. In terms of the stock market direction, I think Monday is going to be an up day, and then we will have down moves Tuesday through Thursday, and especially on Thursday. And then Friday, I give it about 55% chance that the market will slightly come back up. However, I think Monday is going to be most likely the top of the market for some weeks to come, and I think that by the 19th and or 20th we will see this exuberant optimism start to wane and fade rather, and that any sort of stocks or businesses or perspectives or initiatives announced either over the weekend 14th, 15th and or 16th of November, the excitement about those may gradually wane, or at least they will be treated a little bit more realistically. So speaking of the events, I did expect some surprising events occurring either on the weekend, especially Sunday, and or on Monday the 16th. I have not seen anything particularly surprising. I suppose we have the launch of the SpaceX and NASA postponed from Saturday to Sunday. I wouldn't say it was surprising so far. Seems like it's going well. There was an announcement over the weekend, of course, about this really large trade agreement signed or at least announced by the 15 Asia-Pacific countries. And I wouldn't say that was a surprising agreement. However, it was definitely a meaningful large event that occurred over the weekend. And then of course on the 16th, what I saw, and that was exactly as predicted, that there would be announcements about financial institution, banks, rates, etc. And indeed there was an announcement about the PNC basically setting to buy Spain's US business, BBVA business for 11.6 billion. And that apparently is the second largest acquisition in its, I guess, size since back in 2019 when BB&T had merged with SunTrust. And once this deal, that the PNC had announced goes through, they will become the fifth largest bank in the US, and this is definitely very fitting under the virtually precise conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto, where Pluto has to do with things like debt and loans and kind of money owed, and Jupiter makes everything just extra large and over the top. We also had news on Monday about Home Depot setting to acquire HD Supply Holdings for $8 billion. And again, this may not be necessarily, these obviously are not banks or financial institutions themselves, but the financial transaction involved here definitely is a fairly large, and so we're talking about these multi-billion-dollar deals all coming up at this exact same time. And of course, the Jupiter also rules things like international agreements, and we have, of course, this announcement about the RCEP, this Trans-Pacific or the Asia-Pacific agreement also taking place exactly at the same time. And what's interesting, and that's something in my glance ahead predictions for China, and this kind of this sort of representations or rather manifestations of China being engaged more actively in various international organizations or announcing some really large-scale new initiatives, especially in the areas of like telecommunications, IT, artificial intelligence, anything that's like high-tech, cutting-edge, aerospace related, etc. That actually, my prediction was that this will become a little bit more significant starting, I would say, mid-December, and then through, I would say, the end of January, and especially the very end of the year and the very few days of the next year. And we already see, I guess, with this RCEP trade agreement that this influence is already beginning to manifest. So definitely I would expect even more news out of China, where They will either revamp some of the existing agreements that, again, they're a part of that involve multiple other countries, or that there will be even more such initiatives coming up that, again, involve either high-tech IT and or organizations, networks, where something is basically an entity that consists of multiple parts, and those kind of initiatives will continue to basically manifest even more, I guess, strongly through the end of this year and into January. That's for China specifically. So let's see. So generally, as I mentioned already in my previous week's predictions, this time period from about the 5th of November through the 16th, which corresponds with a fairly precise Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, I believe this will be a major sort of reversal in the stock market for some months or at least weeks to come. And at this time, it looks like it's going to be a top. And let's see. In addition, due to the sort of the energy of these planets, other important events that we may expect at this time is also any sort of reforms that involve legal changes related to either like police, spy agencies, also higher education, foreign affairs, immigration, any sort of this long-distance transportation, shipments, import-export, diplomats, and events perhaps of dangerous nature that involve specifically like clergy, judges, lawyers, foreigners, especially people who are famous, like famous professors. And that's again because of Plutonian influence, so there might be some scandals involving such individuals or groups of individuals, or major reforms, and whatever it may be, it will most likely be done through some legal means where, you know, this group is or is not allowed to travel, or a particular law is passed that affects, you know, like I said, for example, police. And let's see. And in general, I think through about this 19th of November, we will see fairly large movements in the stock market, especially I think this week. Thursday might see a relatively large down move. I think on Thursday the mood may be a little bit more realistic, so any sort of stocks that perhaps came up strongly on Monday on some exuberant kind of news. Of course, we had news about COVID vaccine. I'm already recording this on Monday afternoon, by the way. I did post my predictions on my blog at lostunka.com on Sunday. But basically, yeah, I think on Thursday, the mood may switch to a little bit more realistic, practical, long-term sort of oriented mood. And so I think that stocks that may have been overvalued or went up, you know, crazily high on Monday may actually come down by the 19th, 20th. Let's see. Then for the US also, still through Monday, there might be increased focus on things related to Neptune, so any sort of Navy-related activities, chemicals, water, like excessive precipitation, or beverages, drugs, confusion, but also music, movies, etc. And either the availability of these products may increase, or it may be somehow easier to move maybe goods, maybe, and of course we did have this announcement about vaccine, if I forget this is, I don't want, Moderna, I think, vaccine about 95% efficacy or something like that was announced on Monday. And in general, of course, last week I think it was also announced by, was it Pfizer vaccine also being 90% effective. So yes, as predicted, this period of November 3rd through the 16th was a time where related kind of these areas, which again Neptune has to do with like drugs, pharmaceuticals, etc., where in the news, and I would say maybe not availability of those vaccines wasn't quite there yet, but at least news about them or opportunities for them to be, I guess, or some developments to move forward were there at that time. Let's see, so for Tuesday, I think that Tuesday, the market will probably go down, but again, I only give it about 55% chance because I think the mood may still be somewhat positive, sort of, no, but not as kind of a happy, exuberant as on Monday, and towards the 19th, things may slowly become a little bit more kind of subdued or more, again, realistic, practical. Then on the 18th and 19th, so Wednesday and Thursday, we may hear a lot about globally about various decisions made either at the levels of government or corporate sort of structures. So maybe new leaders, restructuring at the level of corporations, or perhaps long-term planning. And of course, we just heard this news on Monday about various entities, acquiring other entities on a large scale. So of course, this would affect restructuring, I would imagine, at those particular like banks or stores or whatever. And but this, again, globally, this is the time where we may hear just more kind of developments where, some major leader leaves, or corporation decides to restructure things. And the emphasis here may be on kind of a slow growth, how to deal with slow growth, or how to plan ahead to make sure that kind of things are proceeding with caution, implementing like reality checks, maybe like some plans, again, drawing out some plans for this gradual kind of maybe coming back and out of this COVID restrictions, or just some other kind of long-term plans, and again, associated either leadership changes or restructuring, and this could be affecting both entire countries as well as large sort of established corporations. And so this more cautious mood or focus on, again, proceeding slowly and slow growth, I think will bring the market down on the 18th and 19th especially. Also, 18th and 19th may see increased news about businesses related to like mining, coal, nuclear power, and power plants in general. And again, the focus may be on earnings and long-term plans. So for US, on the 18th, there may be increased focus, and 18 and 19 both actually, maybe a strong sort of a focus on banks, financial institutions, rates, loans, taxes, etc. And this is kind of an ongoing background influence, but it will be particularly strongly felt on the 18-19 of November, but it will actually continue to be felt through about December 10th. But the focus is on any sort of either restructuring or limitations or losses or restrictions. And again, regarding either finances, earnings, banks, or any sort of import-export agreements. And especially on the 18th of November, we may hear about either kind of losses or more of a negative kind of more depressing news, I would say. Perhaps, again, something needs to be, maybe some jobs are cut, or perhaps there is some problem where things are proceeding slower than expected, and or again, to ensure some financial stability, some restrictions are implemented. However, by the early December, those restrictions may be lifted. And at the same time, also the 18-19 and also 16th of this week are days that will particularly be sort of prone to experience for basically, I guess, globally, for the increased probability of strong earthquakes, disasters, or some accidents. Is just kind of more of a tense time, and like mining accidents or loss of power, and this could be like literally a nuclear power plant, or just some power plant loses power. This could be related to some, say, seismic activity, or it could be loss of power where maybe a company declares bankruptcy, or particular company loses power, as in like their value goes down, or maybe it's just part of the acquisition where the value shifts hand, or the ownership of a particular company shifts hand, where somebody else becomes powerful versus suddenly overnight, so to speak. And this could be like maybe top official, also like CFO may step down, or like I said, there's a power outage, or some company goes under. Let's see, 19th probably will be the most kind of stressful day, or maybe not stressful, but more kind of a day of practical, more of a realistic mood with long-term planning. And I think this might be a down day with specifically assets that may have peaked on the 16th going down. Then on Friday, there's a slight probability of an up move, and it will be stronger for US. Globally, the transits are not that positive, but for US, there is some slight support for Friday. So in the US, there may be some positive, minor positive news regarding leadership or some decisions, especially legal decisions or laws, judges, immigration, foreign relations, long-distance transportation communication, shipments, and there may be some announcement about some legal decisions, and those decisions may facilitate some smooth shipment or making it easier for somebody to immigrate, or changes, facilitating changes in legal status, making it easier to travel overseas or import export certain goods. But whatever it is, it's most likely will be something that will have some sort of legal component to it, where it's like a law or legal decision. And it may also make it easier, again, that's for Friday, the 20th, in the US to make some sort of leadership transitions, again, in the legal way. Like maybe some executive is appointed, and again, there's a legal change where that person's now legally this new leader or executive. And so quick glance at Monday, the 23rd of November. I think it most likely will have a lot of news about like oil, gas, excessive precipitation, chemicals, navy, water, beverages, basically the array of Neptunian topics. And the news may involve like a greater than usual spread or availability of something, so maybe too much water, maybe some ships, like Navy ships going further to more destinations, or maybe some vaccine or medication become more easily available, or vice versa, some infectious disease spreads more easily than expected, or maybe there's a oil or gas that maybe a pipeline or something was blocked, and now by the 23rd it's finally able to flow freely. So something along those lines. And there's a chance, I think, that the market may be going down on the 23rd. Nothing particularly horrible, but I think it will again be gradually going down after peaking on, I think, the 16th. So the global ongoing influence that's still with us is this major kind of a influence that was with us throughout pretty much the entire year of 2020, with Saturn conjuncting Pluto in Capricorn, and also Jupiter now being there. And that basically coincides with a lot of major like disasters, infectious diseases spreading, geopolitical shifts, etc., leaders passing away, and of course we had a lot of that happening. This will be with us through the end of the year. This week, the strongest days for this influence are 16, 18, and 19 of November. Also, as I mentioned previously, like the months of August and November may see kind of increased focus on various like protests, embargoes, disagreements, also reorganizing and restructuring of, as I said, companies or leadership, maybe greater than usual kind of news about various disasters, etc. So December, I would say maybe slightly better than November in that sense, but things will start picking up at the very end of the month and into January and February of this year, and especially I would say January 7th of the next year, January 7th through February 7th, maybe particularly kind of interesting times. We may be now getting away from this year of pandemic and geopolitical shifts, but there will be some surprises, and particularly, in the early new year, that might be related specifically to like aerospace, anything that's high tech, airlines, as well as cryptocurrencies, any sort of fintech related topics, etc. So let's see. So for China, November is also quite significant. There may be increased number, sort of either floods or disasters that especially involve pollution, or situations that may involve chemicals, or recycling or underground storage, or things that were kind of an eyesore, but now they're coming to the surface and need to be dealt with. At the same time, as I mentioned, towards the end of the year, December and early January, for China, there's a period of, at least if they were to act on it, a period that's actually beneficial for making kind of a moves to start some really long-term new projects, and I believe that's what we will hear. So again, telecommunications, IT, anything that's airlines, computers, networks meaning like the actual IT sort of networks, as well as networking with other countries. So there will be some potentially major announcements coming up for China sometime December, January. And I guess it's already starting in November with this RCEP trade agreement. Let's see. Then quickly scrolling through here, just not to overwhelm with too many predictions. So as I mentioned about the coronavirus, that I think November may see almost like the worst sort of news about that, but this may be the final wave with things kind of starting to becoming better, in December, and the energy shifting in 2021. Not that that year will not see some surprises. As I said, January, February may see quite a few shocking surprises. However, the focus will switch from like the pandemic and geopolitical shifts to other sort of topics. So the energy will change in 2021. And however, at the same time, it's something that's important to keep in mind, that even though there are a lot of people unfortunately being affected by this COVID-19 pandemic, based on just previous kind of major pandemics in the past, like this Spanish flu of 1918 was actually under the transit of Neptune and Saturn being conjunct, and we will experience that in 2025 and through early 2026. So I suppose it may start as early as end of 2024, then definitely 2025 through about early 2026, and that's when we can expect this other sort of the new, I guess, conjunction, which they don't happen very frequently, and that's actually, the time when there may be another either pandemic or at least focus on having to cure some of the same similar kind of viral diseases, whether it's going to be because there is pandemic and the response is needed, or it's perhaps just there are innovations made in this area based on just the innovations happening in laboratories. That's to be seen, but that's basically another time where there's increased probability of another similar sort of pandemic wave. However, at that time it may actually be more serious, unless of course we have some inventions at the time that can counteract that. And let's see, since we're talking about these far removed dates, I know this goes beyond just the weekly predictions, but I think it's of interest that in the US, in the years of 2022 and 2023, the country will be going through fairly major transformations, with Neptune entering its fourth house, which has to do with banks, real estate, and also just borders and what sort of the motherland, what is the family, etc. So there may be some potential either confusion or literally assets may be underwater, and this could be again floods, literally destroying some borders or making it difficult to build, for example, because the land is either eroded or there's some pollution, and or it may have to do with again banks and real estate and their assets being underwater, in the sense that there's some problems with mortgages. And at the same time we will have a Pluto return, which already kind of creeping in, sort of. It's a very slow unfolding aspect, but it will be exact 22-23 rather, and at that time we may expect major transformations in the sense of what's government, who is in charge, what is the governmental structure. And also for the US, Pluto is in the second house of finance, so it will also be having to do with sort of financial power, or who is in power financially, or what is the value of currency, who owns the currency, and this may not be, this may also just shift people's values, like what do they feel is or is not valuable at the time. So the value system may change, or like I said, there may be some monetary reforms and or just again general restructuring, but this could be on a fairly large scale and something that hasn't really occurred, the shift that hasn't really occurred since the US was founded. It may also coincide, as we've seen on like examples of Vatican that just had gone through this Pluto return not too long ago, where there may be some scandals also again about like financial institutions or people who are in power, and basically about their backgrounds, their financial dealings. So we may hear more about corruption at the same time, and that's perhaps where the power will change hands, because, you know, some people may have to step down due to, you know, certain corruption being uncovered. So let's see, so for next week, as I said, things may be slightly going down, and however, I think December may look less stressful, and then starting very end of December, and I'd say especially picking up January 7th through then February 7th of 2021, and especially January 9th through 31st, and then February 5 is when we may expect another bout sort of market volatility and some surprising, if not shocking, developments related to IT, telecommunications, aerospace, cryptocurrencies, social media, and education. So this could range from just power outages or outages of some of these social networks. But there could also be some important legal decisions announced, or some new laws or international agreements or conflicts that affect those industries the most. And there may be more news about the various sort of funding and acquisition of some of these industries, or changes related to, again, airlines or cryptocurrencies. And there may be also some announcements of maybe some major project being funded that perhaps is a transportation project, and or if such a project was undergoing at that time, suddenly the funding may cease, or it may be you know, basically changed in some major way. So some sort of a, maybe related to railways, cars, or airplanes, there may be some changes in funding for such projects. And again, there may also be increased probability at that time, which is, I'm just giving you a quick preview of January, early February of next year. There may also be a variety of, like I said, surprises, disruptions, explosions, accidents, maybe fires, and or strong winds. But after sort of November being maybe a little bit more of a tumultuous month, I think December is looking a little bit more peaceful, and then back into January, the energy will shift. It's not going to be, as I say, depressing as 2020 was, but there will be definitely new surprises coming in next year, and interesting times ahead for US, especially in 22 and 23. So I hope that this was interesting, and I didn't go on too long, and that you will come back and check me out next week. Until, have a great week ahead. Bye everyone.